Hello, we're back with another episode of Mistakes and Mistakes. I'm Ed. So, I guess this is going to be mistake one, where I talk about like a musical thing that's happening that I guess no one's either talking about or it's a story that people are missing. And I guess I'm going to do like a bunch of these at once, just as like a stream of consciousness kind of thing, since it's been that kind of week. So I guess it's just all the music news in kind of one big thing, or one like just epitaph of thoughts for music this week. So Meatloaf died. Rest in peace, Meatloaf. It's interesting to me that, and this is really something that the Eagles talked about. The Eagles talked about that they were the band of the 70s, and so that their whole thing was holding up the torch for that decade. In the 70s, I've always thought that the 70s reminded me of the 90s in kind of a way. Well, that the 90s reminded me of the 70s. That at the same time in the 70s, you had like the end of the era of the Beatles with Wings starting and John Lennon's first record coming out, and you had the kind of rise of heavy metal with Smoke on the Water and Led Zeppelin 1. You had the rise of kind of glam metal and market metal with T-Rex and Kiss. I call it market metal, I guess, because what Kiss did in the late 70s. Then you had the singer-songwriter thing happening at the same time with, J.D. Souther and the Eagles and Linda Ronstadt and John Prine, and the rise of country music with the Highwaymen and Johnny Cash still being big. And you had Carly Simon, and you had Fleetwood Mac, and you had James Taylor. It was just, and then you had disco. And the 70s just like a full musical era where things dominated the radio at different times, and but it all added to culture. That's kind of where you get Meatloaf. You get Meatloaf because Bat Out of Hell was a big record, and he parlayed his success from being a musician to becoming a little bit of a movie star, but staying in the musician thing, and other artists ended up doing that. I think like Glenn Frey ended up on Miami Vice in the 80s. Like, it became a thing where musicians kind of became actors for a second, but not like big actors. And the 90s reminded me of the same thing. You had a confluence of a bunch of different styles, and they all kind of happened at the same time. Like, grunge happened at the same time that the female singer-songwriter thing happened, and grunge only really lasted for like 3 years. So then you had the manufactured boy band era, which kind of lasted till like 2000, and the girls that came along with that, like Xtina and that whole thing, and Britney Spears. And then, but at the same time, you had the female singer-songwriter thing with Lilith Fair and that whole thing, and Sarah McLachlan and Tori Amos. And at the same time all that was happening, you had the rise of the end of kind of rap music in a way, because all the old style had gone away, that from like LL Cool J and Kool Moe Dee and that kind of era went away, and you had like Edutainment, KRS-One, and PM Dawn, and Arrested Development, and then that went away very quickly because gangster rap came on the scene, where they were reporting on what was going on in the inner city. And then that really kind of lasted, until the deaths of Tupac and Biggie, and then M came around, and then you had kind of 2000s, I guess, you had the era of Dre producing everybody, and then you had Jay-Z and Drake, and Meek Mill had like kind of celebrity rap, where they rap about how tight they are with the government. Okay, so you had all that, and I say all that to say that through all those years, Meatloaf kind of was around, and he was, I am Mr. Paulson, but he was an icon because he put himself in different situations. But he still toured, he still guested on people's records, he still did stuff. And I was never the biggest Meatloaf fan. So, but he was always kind of in the background of a lot of things I was doing, and a lot of other music that I like, or Rocky Horror Picture Show. Like he was just around. And I want to segue from that to Sinead O'Connor. So like last week, or maybe it was before the tragedy happened. Looking back on a lot of stories and reading a lot of headlines, there was this talk after the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame of why Sinead O'Connor's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And the truth is, there's probably 10 other women, if you want to just look at strictly female artists, there are 10 other artists that should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame way before we even get to Sinead O'Connor. Because it's not that no, it is. Let's be honest. Everybody wants to be kind of nice about it, I guess, but here's the fact. Sinead O'Connor's biggest hit is an album. She is a song that she more or less appropriated from Prince, because Prince ended up, I don't know, the story behind how she did Nothing Compares to You is kind of murky. Because she wanted to originally, well, no, it's not murky. She originally tried to pass it off as a song that she wrote herself. Then people realized that, much like I Feel For You, Nothing Compares to You was a song that Prince wrote, copyrighted, just never released on a record, and she had to pay him royalties, and that sparked kind of a feud between the two of them. If you listen to Morris Day in interviews he's done, you know what Prince's MO was about writing songs for women or letting women license anything from his catalog, which no one needs to guess, not this video. She ended up having to pay Prince money because it was a big hit. It was her only big hit, because the only other song anybody knows about Sinead O'Connor is The Emperor's New Clothes, and that she collaborated with the Charlatans on a couple of records, most specifically Foggy Dew. And she's been through a bunch of stuff the last few years, and I feel bad for her, despite the fact that musically she might be lacking, and I didn't understand all the press about it. The reason I bring that up is why I didn't understand all the press and the kind of groundswell for why is everybody, really it comes down to why is everybody talking about Sinead O'Connor all of a sudden. This is like 2 weeks before the tragedy with her son happened. Because it's weird. That's one of the things I kind of like and dislike about the internet, is everybody, you'll see a trend happening and you go, why is that happening? Why is so-and-so trending? Did they die? But I wanted to talk about Sinead O'Connor today because I wanted to say this. It's not for everybody. And not everybody can dig into themselves or feels the need to dig into themselves and tie a rope and try to find other things to live for or find other things to do to get their mind off of taking their own life. Sinead O'Connor's had kind of a history of suicide attempts. I didn't know this. I had to go look this up. She tried to kill herself. Well, she went missing in Chicago in 2016, and there's a news story out of Chicago that talks about a suicide attempt that she done about that time. The reason that everything's going on now with her being, the last report I saw was on the 14th about her being hospitalized again after her son committed suicide. And she did a lot of public self-pity, like it was my fault, and all the stuff she posted online since deleted. It's a tragic story. And I'm going to post the phone numbers at the end of this video about the Trevor Project and the National Suicide Hotline. If you need help, go get help. I say that, and people that know me will see this video and be like, he doesn't ask for help. No, I don't. I often say that most people I know are better than me. Be better than me, go ask for help, because I don't do it. But that I wanted to take that opportunity to, because I'm not so much puzzled by it in the sense that I've lost a few people in my life to suicide. I've seen it up close. the damage it does to the people that you leave behind is immense. And I get it though. I get the idea of you get, because it's one of the things to do. I was about 8-9 years ago, I started trying to write a film about suicide. So I just started doing a lot of research on it, and there's a lot of interesting, like the suicide cluster thing is interesting. This whole study out of the Philippines about it, and that because there's a bunch of like large cluster suicides happening in the Philippines behind. It was mostly males. It's an interesting study, but I wanted to talk about that to say this. Like, I'm going to put the numbers up. Like I said, if you having trouble with something or you have an issue, talk to somebody. Talk to somebody. Do that, because you never know. You never know what someone else is battling. So try to be kind to people. I'm talking when I tell you. The Nirvana suit got tossed. The suit where the kid that was in the baby picture, the kid from Nevermind, that suit got tossed. I feel bad for that kid in the sense that there's a bunch of times earlier before this lawsuit where there were efforts to include him. He made a modicum of a little money off of it. He was just never able to parlay that situation into fame. And it's really because when you're known for a photograph, I guess people are just like, okay, so what else do? You were tiny when this happened. No one knows anything really about you. So it's hard to generate fame from I was on the album cover. But then it's hard to say that these people, which is kind of the core of his lawsuit, these people have done harm to you, and so you want 6 figures from the estate and from the individual members. And why? Like, and then he wanted to say, and this was the part of the lawsuit I was really worried about, where he was like, well, no, they were complicit in the making of child pornography. Okay, so you didn't try to have the photographer arrested, you didn't try to have your parents arrested. I don't know what the status is of his parents. Like, I don't get what his motivation was other than just money, which is sad. But I'm glad that the suit got tossed, because it's just one of those, like, Last but not least, the thing that I want to talk about, which I should probably do like a larger video on. I'm musing on it a little bit. I've been musing on it really since the death of Triple X Tentacion. Yes, I can say his whole name. Is that, so the thing I've noticed is all these legends are dying. David Bowie, Meatloaf, like Glenn Frey, like all these, we're losing a lot of established, iconic stars in music. DMX. And I'm starting to do a little research on it, because I'm not there, because I'm not in the demo for it. I'm not in the demo for SoundCloud rappers. I'm just not. But what I'm worried about is that once you get past the legends of hip hop, or even once you get past the hip hop dudes and women from the aughts, and maybe even from the early 2010s, like, to have scenes or to have genres of music, you actually have to have people doing it. And I've been watching these news stories like the last 6 months. It's like all of these rappers, these young rappers that are coming up, are getting killed at an alarming rate for the amount of people doing the genre. I have to say I'm interested in that, because it's just it bothers me from a musical standpoint, because most of these guys have one record or they have one song, and they're gone, and it's just like, how are you building a legacy with that? And then how is the scene, how is hip hop going to build a legacy from the fact that there aren't people Like, it's not the curse of 27. It's the curse of 50 cal. Like, it's the purpose the curse of Desert Eagle 5.0. Like, shootouts. Just like there's a rapper in Chicago that got killed because his girlfriend, her ex was in her DMs, and the rapper she was with now, she told him about it. They end up meeting for this shootout, and now one of them's dead and the other's wounded, and she's all like, whatever. And it's just like, I miss the days where, and on no other genre of music was able to pull this off. Well, I take that back. There are instances where it happened, where someone would make a record and someone would answer it. And one of the next things that I'm going to break up the personal play with lists with is this unique thing that happened about over 30 years ago now. The Exile on Guyville, Exile on Main Street song battle. It'll be more explained in the video for that, but I'm working on that because I'm fascinated by both records and that the fact that it's an answer record. But it used to be on wax. It used to be, Roxanne and Roxanne Shantae, like that whole rap battle. I thought that was cool, and that was, to me, was peak hip hop. But that doesn't happen anymore, and it doesn't happen since. And I don't know what other rappers are doing, because are there going to be enough rappers to do that? I don't know. So that's some musings. That's my first mistake. Was it a mistake to talk about these things? I didn't talk about the Gabrielle Union thing. Still fidgeting on that. Maybe that may be like my second mistake. I don't know. That one feels like it's super personal, which is why I'm talking about it. But that's mistake one. If you like these mistakes, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. And like I said, the phone numbers for the Trevor Project and for the National Suicide Hotline are going to be at the end of this video. If you need help, talk to somebody. That's my PSA. All right. Have a great Sunday.